Throughout the war, Ukraine has become a world leader in drone manufacturing. It's estimated Ukraine produced over 2 million last year alone, and their troops are getting a helping hand from volunteers in Brussels. Our correspondent Terry Schulz visited a nonprofit on a mission to help Ukrainian soldiers defend themselves on the front lines.
Gathered in a makeshift workshop in Brussels, a cozy setting with snacks, a group of friends practices their weekend hobby. But the location is kept secret because this is not your typical crafting party.
First we build a frame, then mortars, soldering, configuring, flight testing, and we are making batteries today as well.
They're making drones to send to Ukraine, assembling themselves under the name Wings for Europe, a nonprofit started 2 years ago by Ukraine supporters in Brussels.
People say, oh, I'm scared, so I say, don't be scared, act, work. It started from one person knowing how to build it, and we shared it together among friends and said it would be great to continue. We just learned from each other, so now I sit to a person who came for the first day and I say, this is how you do it, this is the logic behind, and you'll know it next time immediately. So you make it once and you can make hundreds.
And hundreds have already been sent. Production is limited only by funding, which they're constantly seeking. Many of these assembly volunteers are also contributing their own money.
So here's a pack with a frame, 10-inch frame. We unpack it, we give it to the table out there. Our time, our fingers, our tools, our premises, our electricity, it's all free of charge. That's why we are producing them so cheap. We are the ones who understand clearly that it's way cheaper to do things now, to give tools to Ukrainians now so that they can protect themselves and Europe, than to fight another war deeper in Europe.
Agnieszka Bakun understands all too well. She left Ukraine just before Russia's full-scale invasion.
So are you just learning today? Yeah, the second day. The second time you've tried? Okay. Yes, so I'm just learning this process is first time.
Now living in Luxembourg, Bakun traveled to the workshop with other volunteers.
Actually, what I feel like Ukrainian person, it's that Europe doesn't forget about us and that they still trying to help us.
Emotions echoed by a wounded war veteran visiting from Kyiv.
And it's very helpful for save our troops, because drone cost maybe 300 euro, and life of our soldier, it's priceless.
In the next room, other volunteers are creating nets by hand to camouflage soldiers on the battlefield. Within a few hours, some of the new creations are ready to test. Once a drone gets the okay, it also often gets a name, chosen by the person who donated the funds to build it.
The name will appear here, and we'll make a photo and send them, and then put them in the boxes, and off they go.
Transported mostly by partners who want to remain anonymous, but sometimes hand-delivered by people proud to be helping the mission, like these members of the European Parliament. The drones won't last long once they get to the front line in Ukraine. Their job is to ensure the survival of soldiers, like this unit expressing its appreciation.
Really appreciate your help.
Great care is put into showing donors how important they are. Artists are contributing their work, as are Ukrainian refugee children living in Europe.
We are doing this just to thank those who are giving the tools the Ukrainians need. And here you see wings, wings for Europe, wings for Ukraine, and you see a heart.
Loads and loads of hearts.
This report by our correspondent Terry Schulz joins me now. Terry, who are these people, spending their free time in ad hoc workshops somewhere in Brussels to help Ukraine? What's driving them? What did they tell you?
That's right. They came from all walks of life, Nicole, and many different countries. And they're very much united, as you heard from one volunteer there, by feeling that they needed to do something to help Ukraine more than their everyday jobs would offer. And that's why they've gathered together, starting from just a handful of people in someone's garage who figured out they could build a drone, to really expanding and trying to fundraise. And they get plenty of people offering to come and help them. They're limited mostly by money. Now, I think that as you saw there, people are very much motivated by this effort and feel that, you can't just stand by. You really have to do whatever is within your means. And they figured out this is within their means.
You mentioned in the report that they meet in undisclosed locations. If they need to be worried about security, how do they recruit volunteers?
That's right. They're not by any means broadcasting where they hold these assembly parties, but they're not living in the shadows, Nicole. In fact, I'd heard about this group by word of mouth for some time, and then for whatever reason, I got targeted on social media with their fundraising campaigns, and there was contact information there. So that's how I got in touch with them, and we are the first international news organization invited into one of these assembly parties, so I felt quite honored to be there. But what they are asking for is for money. Right now, they have enough people asking to come and help, and they don't want to continually be training new people if they don't have money to buy parts. So they have to wait until they can make a big order and get these pieces in. But they've been contacted by people in other countries. In fact, they told me that they plan on traveling to Germany to help set up a chapter there in January. So what they really need is actually more funds. They've been talking about their program, including just in the European Parliament a few days ago. And they had members of the European Parliament, as you saw there in my piece, offering to take the drones in person to Ukraine. So it seems to be going well, but there can never be enough money for these fundraising campaigns to help Ukraine.
You also work a lot on defense for us. How reliable are these drones assembled by volunteers?
Well, that's beyond my means to guess, Nicole, but they do test them. And I mean, some of these people aren't technically gifted, but some of them know what they're doing, and they certainly have taught themselves. So they do go through several different tests there, and they're marked on the drone that they have been approved within this process. So once they send them off, they are pretty confident that they're going to work.
A couple of weeks ago, Ukraine's president announced the country's industry would be capable of producing tens of thousands of drones each year. Do they really need the relatively small number of drones produced by this group?
Well, yes to both. Ukraine can produce far more than it is at the moment. It's under capacity now, and just like this volunteer program needs more money. But the group Wings for Europe is in contact with units on the front line. You saw some of them there in my piece thanking Wings for Europe specifically. And as they told me, a single drone can save so many lives that every single one of them is considered a lifesaver, a game changer for those troops on the front line. So they're very grateful for every single drone that makes it there to the front line, Nicole.
DW correspondent Terry Schulz, thank you so much for your reporting.
Let's explore this with Federico Bossari, who specialises in transatlantic defence and security at the Centre for European Policy Analysis. He joins us from Paris. Welcome to DW. Drones do seem to be playing an ever-expanding role in this war. Now we're seeing volunteers making them. How big a role do volunteer-made drones play?
They do an important role. They play definitely an important role. And I think, as we have seen in the service, there are a lot of volunteer organizations that are contributing to, Ukraine defense by producing, manufacturing, or even fundraising for drone production in Ukraine itself. It's difficult to have a metric of how many drones are, coming from volunteer organizations, but I think it's definitely, an effort that is, paying in terms of battlefield results. And it's also contributing to the effort of Ukrainian units and other volunteer organizations that are working in Ukraine itself. So it's a combination of things. And it's not just the production of drones, but it's also, helping units to source the components, and also helping units to basically scale the production that sometimes is difficult because of the impact of Russian strikes on production facilities, but also because sometimes funding is not sufficient from the government side, and so volunteer organizations are also basically complementing the state resources and the state's efforts. So it's really important that this type of initiatives continue, because the amount of drones that is currently needed on the battlefield is absolutely astonishing.
Right, so these enthusiastic volunteers put these drones together, they send them out to the front line, where they do what? What are they used for?
They are used for a variety of missions, but mostly, and especially as the drones that we have seen, they are used for for combat missions. So basically, diving against targets, destroying Russian, personnel and vehicles, striking, drone production or even drone positions on the Russian side, buildings, so a variety of targets. And these are small drones, of course. They are very compact. You can carry them, with ease around. But they are also very vulnerable to electronic warfare, for instance, and countermeasures. So you need a lot of them to make sure you can achieve some effects on the battlefield.
Understood. And so we've got these amateurs, these enthusiastic volunteers making these things. They look quite light and flimsy. How reliable are they?
They are quite reliable, I would say. Of course, they are different from military-grade systems. But at the same time, we have seen that many of these volunteer organizations are in constant touch with the frontline units in Ukraine, and so they know what Ukrainian warfighters need, because they receive the feedback from the units, and so they can iterate. They can change some of the frequencies, they can change some of the components, and to make sure that drones are still relevant in a very denied environment. And so I would say they are pretty reliable, also because many of these volunteer organizations test all of the drones that they produce. And so they are able to basically keep the technology relevant over time.
Thanks for joining us, Federico. Federico Borsari from the Centre for European Policy Analysis.
Thank you.
Jacob Parakilas is a defense analyst at the global policy think tank RAND Europe. He's an expert on drone warfare and joins me now. Welcome, Jacob. Now, how big a role do volunteer-made drones play in the overall war effort?
They certainly play a role. I mean, the interesting thing is that with drone warfare, it's a new ability to contribute frontline capabilities. You can't build a 155 millimeter artillery shell or a bullet in an average home workshop. Being able to contribute drones is a new thing, and it allows the sort of the weapon to be partly manufactured outside of the country and then mated with the actual explosive part, the warhead, the lethal part in country, which means that you can sort of spread these things out, spread the construction out across places where obviously holding explosives might be illegal or dangerous. And it's really important that this production is distributed as widely as possible, because the large factories can be targeted by Russians using their own missiles and drones.
But seeing this workshop, I mean, I really wonder, are drones that easy to build? You know, as easy for anyone with very little practice to do it in a workshop?
The actual assembly is not that difficult. The tricky part is making sure that the software and the control systems are constantly updated, making sure that they're resilient against Russian jamming and electronic warfare. And that's a constant battle. It's a constant back and forth between the software and the hardware and the on the Russian side, the people working on electronic warfare and jamming.
How have these grassroots initiatives influenced Ukraine's tactics in its defense against Russia?
The thing to remember about Ukraine's defense against Russia is that it's very much a whole of society approach. It's not just the armed forces. There are volunteer organizations inside, outside, and crossing the border between Ukraine and Europe. It's not solely a sort of an activity that's done by or coordinated by the central offices of the Ministry of Defense. There are all these innovations and all these additions coming from all over the place, and that makes it very possible for the Ukrainians to adapt and to respond quickly to new Russian tactics or new Russian advances on the battlefield.
Many European countries faced drone incursions recently, often blamed on Russia. What do you think Europe can learn from Ukraine to counter this threat?
Well, I think the way that Ukrainians have used low-cost solutions to counter Russian drones, in particular, first-person view drones being used to intercept larger one-way attack drones, the use of auditory sensing systems to detect drones rather than radar, which is generally set up to detect larger crewed aircraft. But also, again, the fact that this is not just a military issue. It's not just a question of having enough military assets. It's about enrolling all of society in these defense efforts. And that's more natural when there's an active war, but something that I think Europe needs to adapt itself to.
That's defense analyst Jacob Parakilas with RAND Europe. Thank you so much for all those insights.